Kia ora, welcome everyone, please be seated. Alrighty, I'd like to welcome firstly members of the public in attendance today. Great to have you with us on what is a really important issue, and thank you to those that have been very vocal and been active in having conversations with members of the public. It's a really important issue for us, and speaks certainly to the Three Waters reform, but it's, as we're all aware, it's bigger than that. So I'm sure we'll discuss that today. Welcome also Wayne O'Donnell from Geraldine Community Board. Great to have you with us. Just got apologies today. One apology from Janine Adams from the Geraldine Community Board. I'll move that. Councillor Riley, you happy to second that? Thank you, Councillor Riley. We'll put the motion to the floor. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Barb is with us just there. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I've missed her. Anne, sorry, apologies. Welcome, we've got Anne at the back there. Great to have you with us. So it's hard with masks, isn't it? Moving now to declaration of conflicts of interest. Anything in front of us? Barb, you're okay? Yep, nothing. So move now to urgent business. You're Councillor Piddington.
Just acknowledging regarding TDHL, might have been the error earlier that perhaps we get paper brought back to us. I noticed under the Constitution of TDHL that shareholders, by the resolution, shall appoint chairperson and deputy chairperson. Sorry, appoint the chairperson and deputy chairperson, not actually the board. So I just wanted that noted.
Cool, and that was context to that was our previous meeting. We had to double check that council appointed the chair, but we had to check back to the Constitution to see that it was also the deputy chair, which is the case, which is actually different from our CCO, Venture Timaru, which the board elects the chairperson in that instant. Sorry, apologies. So cool, that's great. And looking under urgent business also, I just want to have a discussion in and around our LGMZ membership and benefits and perhaps strategy going forward. So you're happy to move that, do you want to just move that, both those items? I'm happy to second them. Is there any further discussion about having those on the agenda today? No, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. It's quite hard managing a meeting without the facial expressions. I've just got to read the eyes. So move now to paper one, which is Three Water submission, and I welcome Ashley up to talk with us.
Thank you, Your Worship. It gives me great pleasure to present this comprehensive report. Is that better? There we go. This comprehensive report, which has been written by a number of staff, the Chief Executive and Leadership team, especially Eric and Andrew, the Strategy and Policy team, and Communications team have all had input. And so, whilst my name is on it, I represent the writing team, which is extensive. I think you'll see in the 5 recommendations there that there is a whole range of issues that need to be looked into, and also we have included with this report 7 attachments on the basis that it's the first real opportunity to present all that we have been given to council. So they're all the reference documents, and they are therefore now on the public record as they relate to Timaru District Council. So having dealt with, now we deal with the issues in detail, and the devil is in the detail with all these reforms. You know, we've been given all this information, it keeps coming out of Wellington, and it's when you study the detail that you then come to the conclusion that this report needs to make submissions to government dealing with the issues as they affect Timaru District. So in particular, paragraph 23, and the first thing I think is we should not ever underestimate the compliance requirements in the future with standards. Remembering those standards have not been fully set yet, and that compliance with unknown standards comes with a seriously unknown cost. But standards are going up, and compliance requirements with those standards are also increasing, and that's documented there in paragraph 23. On page 9, there is a diagram, and I think this exemplifies the serious concerns that we are suggesting there is with the governance and the ownership and the control structure. You see at the top of the page the proposal as it comes out of Wellington, and then you see the current page where you as council with the water and drainage unit and have direct relationship with the consumer. And under the new model, that is certainly multiple entities with multiple steps, and it is quite, I believe, complex, and Treasury even advised government that it was complex. Then moving on to paragraph 69, over the next 8 weeks, as it was in August, which ends this Friday, we've been invited to identify and make submissions on the basis of those 3 issues there. And then on to paragraph, starting at paragraph 75, the Timaru District Council specific information and analysis. So there you have a whole lot of Timaru specific information. We have had independent assessment of that, and some of it is just not correct. You go as far as to say some of it is wrong. And the projected future costs are at least 20% in error, because New Zealand was treated as a whole unit in terms of its consumption of water by household. In Timaru, it's quite different to the national trend. Density of people in houses and so on is different to the national numbers. And so for Timaru Pacific, that $5,000 in fact is $4,000, and it's 20% difference. That's without getting into the underlying assumptions about what that covers and whether the OPEX and CAPEX that are projected for the future are realistic or not.
Sorry, it's just one moment. I'm conscious that this is a really big doc, but what I've got, Andrew's just got perhaps to hand out to those members of the public, just the front page as far as our recommendations, so those members of the public got them in front of them. So we'll just do that and then we'll come back to the doc. Apologies, Ash.
Oh, no problem at all. Lets me draw breath.
We'll save a couple of trees and not print the whole document.
Yeah, on page paragraph 89, this is where there's more detail on the future challenges, and it's these challenges that are very concerning about what that will mean for New Zealand, but they should not be underestimated. And this is a lot of the work that WICS have done is assessing what the future scenarios and therefore challenges might be, and they're well documented there, and they all come with big dollars attached to them, make no mistake. And then we have had, through your initiative, your worship, the community consultation that has been run by our communications team, and that's on paragraph 107. And the pie charts say it all in terms of what our public think. I make perhaps an obvious comment that there have been some people who have said, that council should hold a referendum. But the next question is, what about? What are the questions on the referendum? Because it's not the status quo versus the government proposal, because the status quo is not the future. The future is quite different to what it is now. And so how do you describe the options in a referendum? And I don't know that that would be a responsible thing to do at this time. And so then we come into the submission period, and that is documented on paragraph 119. And then we have sort of identified under 121 the key themes for what our submission should cover. And this is where it's time for councillors to tell us, advise and debate about what it is we should be saying to Wellington by Friday. And so after today's meeting, then staff, and we've got some great writers on our team, will put together, your thoughts, and there's a starter here for 10, but put together your thoughts, and we're seeking delegation for the Chief Executive and the Mayor to sign that off so it can go to Wellington. Of course, you'll receive copies of that submission, and if we have time, we can show you a draft and ask for a quick turnaround if you have any comments. But we are certainly looking for feedback to know what it is we say to Wellington on your behalf. Thank you, Your Worship.
Cool, thanks, Mr. Harper. Really appreciate that. And just briefly to the referendum. I think there's a lot of conversation around the country around that. It was on the back of Bruce from the coast in Westland bringing that up, and the concern for us here was always one, the timing, and I don't think at all that there'll be the opportunity to have a referendum because we all know how this is going to fall. It's really, it does become political. It's about what, if the government can get this through without the polls taking a dent. And we've got a small amount of time to send a clear message, as will other councils be doing this week. And then it really just sits with Cabinet, and Minister Mahuta in a meeting yesterday with the Canterbury Mayoral Forum re-emphasised that this was a decision for Cabinet, and I did question the integrity of the Minister, which went down really well, around promising us a year ago at Rural and Provincial that we would have the opportunity to opt in or opt out, and that certainly was not brought back into the conversation. It's certainly off the table. So the reality of this is it's, if public and councils don't push back across the country on this reform process, and bearing in mind that we're not against all elements of the reform, I think we'll make that clear with the conversation today. But, it's fairly likely that Minister Mahuta will be wearing a red hat with a pom-pom and sending us a Christmas present. Perhaps it'll be us giving her a Christmas. Santa normally delivers gifts, doesn't he, rather than take them away. But that's what we're likely to get, I believe, at Christmas time. Is that how Christmas works? I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. Anyway, let's open the floor for conversation now. And part of this, obviously, we've got some recommendations, but really key that we get some messages to send back to government for the team to put together as well, to populate. Councillor Booth, you can take your mask off.
Thanks, Mayor Nigel. Just a point of clarification, actually the debt, initially I wrote down 57 million for us, and it now says on the dashboard 88 million. Is that changed recently, or what actually is our debt on water infrastructure?
The dashboard always said 88. I think our understanding was it was more 60, but obviously because of the pipelines and some of the projects.
It is all to do with timing of when you say is the debt. For example, if we were to say it at 30th of June, it's quite different as it is today because we're spending big money month by month. And so that is our projected debt at the end of last financial year. If we had spent and completed all the pipeline work, which is still on foot. And so there's, at a quick guess, we've got $20 million worth of pipelines on foot at the moment.
Yeah, no, it was on the DIA website information probably no more than 3 weeks ago, and it's since changed.
Yeah, and it's changing all the time as we draw down funds to pay for contracts in place.
Okay, no, that's fine, thanks.
But we're updating that information with DIA as we know.
No, I don't think. No. We are not actively updating that.
Yeah, the 88 was always the number on the DIA website. Timaru, Councillor Booth, I believe.
And for example, when we did the RFI, the request for information back in November, December, January, that was as at that time. And we had a lot of drawdown that we have made since then. But also remember that the WICS information was based on an old infrastructure strategy because the new one hadn't been adopted by council at that time. And so you've got to be careful about what you're comparing with what due to timing.
Thank you. Councillor Burt.
Yeah, I don't really have too many questions. My statement is around the fact that those recommendations are all valid. You could pull them apart if you really wanted to. But in terms of sending that clear message and asking the questions that need to be asked, they're all extremely valid. There are too many flaws in this, and as Mark Twain said, there are 3 types of lies. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. And the more statistics you pump into a hole, the more it means it's very, very difficult to know and understand exactly what is truth and what is fact and otherwise. It is glaringly obvious with work that we've done and supported by Castalia that there are too many assumptions. When you look at Wix now in terms of its one authority through its evolution across the whole of Scotland, it is seriously wanting in terms of what it's done to its infrastructure and where that's ended up. So why are we using them as a benchmark to start with? And when we look at the way central government have lined us up and basically taken us on a journey, telling us and dictating us how we must think and how we must communicate, and then slamming us at the end. And as you said, you called into account the minister's integrity, I think you said. But I mean, the truth of the matter is she's already shown her cards and said it'll only take a change of law. So whether it's opt-in or opt-out, we need to hit the ground running and make a decision here today. And I certainly know which way I'm going.
Thank you, Councillor Burt. In question probably for me too, are you comfortable that the recommendations are strong enough? We can open to amendments if we want to make them stronger. Sorry, was that? Oh, Councillor Piddington.
Well, it's disappointing that the government want us to, or obligate us to consult on everything else with the public through long-term plans, 10-year plans, yet this they're pushing through, not giving us enough information, not allowing us to consult with our ratepayers who paid for these assets over a long period of time. There's no democratic accountability in giving it to this newly formed entity. There's just not enough information. So there's no way you can support it in any way, shape or form. And it also will affect our ability to borrow in the long term if they take that income and those assets off us. So I think it's a no-brainer to say no.
Thanks, Councillor Piddington. Councillor Oliver. Oh, sorry, and then I'll go to Councillor Gilchrist in a moment. Apologies. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, look, the whole process has been flawed from the start, hasn't it? It's lacked credibility through flawed assumptions, transparency, good democratic process. I mean, we know as a council we have good water infrastructure. Our ratepayers invested heavily in having good water infrastructure, and it's shone through our water quality in the latest competition, you'd call it, I guess, of having the best water in the country. Why would we hand all that over to some sort of faceless conglomerate? I just don't get why we do that. So for me personally, I think for me, it's a no for me. I can only see one way, and that's opting out.
Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Go now to Councillor Gilchrist.
Kia ora. Thank you. Look, I think it's a complete, these three, it's a trifecta. The reform, this reform before the review of the local government system in itself, before that's completed, this just makes absolutely no sense. And then to try and sell this to us with flawed data that assumes we'll make no improvements is frankly insulting. And I fully support these three, this recommendation in these three statements to send, because I just, to assume we'll make no improvements is just ridiculous. And also trying to do this before any kind of complete review of local government is undertaken, it makes no sense. And obviously, like everyone else, I have no desire to lose our local control over how we manage our water and how we meet the needs of our people. So I fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gilchrist. Councillor Lyon. Oh, sorry, can you, Councillor Oliver, can you just jump out? Thanks, mate. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Worship. I certainly support the opt-out option. There's no question about that. It's quite clear. I mean, quite simply, you know, going through the process as we have, it leaves me with no faith that there won't be further reforms coming down through the line. This is the infrastructure for the water, the pipes and the pumps and so forth. The real risk is the ownership of the water itself. And I've got no faith that this isn't the first step on that journey that's being pushed and perpetrated potentially from Wellington. So, and that is yet another debate, and almost a bigger debate than this. And so to set ourselves up in that direction, to me, is just totally wrong, and it sends out all the wrong messages to the fact that water is the infrastructure that moves the water around and not the water itself. And that is a risk that I think is real, that will go that way. And, you know, it's we've got a proud history as a district of investing in a timely manner on behalf of our community. And you know, as been mentioned before, I mean, we can win competitions for good water, and that shows as much that our staff are brilliant in being able to get chlorine into the water in the right measures and into our good water. So it's a combination of the waters we have and the ability of our staff to put chlorine correctly and well into the water to win New Zealand's best. So we have all those abilities within our ranks. And, you know, as we speak, the Timaru upgrades going on, and the Townlands upgrades going on. We've spent a lot of money on the sewer in the recent years. It's just, for us to be dragged in as a councillor who's been doing the right thing over a long period of time, planning and looking ahead for these very things, it is, as Councillor Gilchrist said, quite insulting. Ready to be lumped in as if we haven't been performing and asking our ratepayers to do the right thing and support these outcomes. Same thing with stormwater. We're putting money aside for that, have been for a number of years. We know that's real. We're working on that. So this is just an easy one to say no to, and it's just it could signal lots of things in the future. It really could, because I mean, as has been said at other occasions, taking away 35% of the activity of all councils leaves them a lot less able to survive and or provide functions for their communities. So that could lead potentially to an expectation from up above in Wellington that a forced amalgamation could be in the future for some or all of the councils in New Zealand. So I've got no faith that there's not a grand plan behind all this, which could lead to things that our community just does not want. So absolutely opposed to it.
So I'm reading between the lines here, Councillor Lyon, that was a thanks very much, Minister, but no thanks.
That's the nice one.
Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole setup right from the start's been a bit confusing for some, and for me, with all this information we've been giving, and I must congratulate the staff on the way they've sort of dealt it out to us in some sort of summarised way, which was always very difficult to be able to summarise it. But the whole setup, or the proposed setup of the governance of it, scares me. The fact that who's going to run this, there's going to be people shoulder tapped, and is it a fair representation of our community and our society? So and I suppose my time being in council, this has been probably the first time I've never had anyone ring me or speak to me, and the fact that they don't want us, they all want us to opt out. No one has said, stay in and join up. So, we as elected members, we have to, take heed of that and understand that, this is what our community wants. So, with that, I'm just fully supportive of us opting out. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Wills.
Thank you, Your Worships, through you. My view is that right from the very initial start, and the idea that then when this is presented, the process, the consultation and engagement has completely been severely lacking. I also think too, the amount of misinformation and the manipulation of a lot of the facts, both financial and also benefits for and against, have been absolutely off the mark. And I think with our engagement of consultants and also the amazing amount of work that TDC representatives have done, have truly given us a more of a well-rounded picture about where we're going to into the future. And once again, we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't predict where this is going to be in 5, 10, 20 years' time. So I'm really actually almost embarrassed by the fact that the central government has come back and delivered this information for us as a community as well, to try and make some sort of decision-making process when they've manipulated it right from the very start. And I wouldn't call it a fair and democratic process at all. It's been really interesting sitting here, and I think through some of the process has been really enjoyable to listen to some of the community representatives that have come here and spoken and presented to the council, but also to the resounding voices that both via emails and or phone calls and texts that have received, that have shown that the community have engaged. They've also wanted to engage even more and get more information, but because of the tight time frame central government are wrapped around this process, trying to get local government to make some decisions, I think it's very resounding the fact that our community as a whole, and we represent the community, they've said that they're quite clearly against this process and they're not in favour of supporting it. And therefore, as part of that, and also with the information I have before me and the research I've done, I certainly am in favour of opting out as well. Absolutely against it.
Thanks, Councillor Wills. Councillor Parker.
Thank you. I too, so the claims are overstated, they're implausible. There's the overstated the future costs, are overstated the benefits to our community. Our Three Waters asset belongs to our community, and that's where it needs to stay. We need to continue with our local accountability. We've managed our Three Waters successfully for a long time, and we know our local knowledge about our Three Waters. We need to be responsive to our own local demands. We have the knowledge, and what central government's proposal is proposing is, as I said, it's implausible. It's not any benefits to our community at all, and our community have overwhelmingly voiced their opinions, and we do represent them as well as our own learnings and research that we've done. And I support all 5 recommendations that have been put forward to us, and very strongly opt out.
Thanks, Councillor Parker. Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel. There's a number of things. I guess initially, obviously, my biggest issue is the fact that they're wanting to take over 460 odd million of our assets off the ratepayer. People build a house, they pay the council some money for pipes and infrastructure to go in. And I guess they don't expect that to be given away for a pittance to us, to a group of people who haven't put a cent towards it. And the local council lose all control. Just doesn't make sense, It's just highway robbery, really. So I guess the governance is a major issue for me. The taking of the asset from the ratepayer, who have paid for it, and generations have paid for that. The other big concern for me is the operation of the council. We have 22 million income, OPEX of around 12 or 11 million. So that's 11 million that goes towards the operations of our council. So that's just, and that spread that gets paid, helps pay interest, debt, and other professional services spread throughout whatever the council wants to do. So, that's going to leave a massive hole. I guess the other good example that the report points out is that when you give centralised control to a government or a central agency such as Waka Kotahi, all of a sudden our roads are buggered, and they got other priorities like a cycle bridge over the Harbour Bridge. And are they really listening? Are they concerned? Do they care about South Canterbury? No, they don't. So in my mind, it's just a massive asset grab, and it's all to do with the fact that there's an opportunity, it's politically driven, and yeah, I really just don't want to have any part of it. So yeah, and I'm deeply concerned about some of the information we've been getting back from our New Zealand local government. I'm not sure what they've been promised or what they're thinking, but they certainly haven't been representing the Timaru district or any other local government group. Very concerned about that. They've controlled the narrative with the DIA, and you know, to top it all off, they put that embarrassing ad about how all our water's, you know, slimy and you can't go swimming, and you know that was just a shocker. It made out that we're all idiots. So yeah, I'm against it. I guess I am. One thing I'd just like to add,
Yeah.
I actually am quite keen on the new water authority, and I think that's probably long overdue, and that's probably where they should have started. And if you read the Fair and Square report, that's really the counterfactual, which is actually ultimately what they want to do, but they're pushing this extra step.
Yeah, and we'll deal with that recommendation separately, I think, because that's really important, just to have some conversation around the regulator sort of things. Thanks, Alan. Councillor Burt.
I was just going to give some context to that last bit. I certainly agree with the fact that we're long overdue to have better accountabilities on water quality. There's no two ways about that, no getting away from it. But one of the things that showed that this government has preempted this whole process is that effectively the new regulator has been financed to and resourced to the level at which it was preempted that all government all central or TAs would hand over the resource of our three waters. So again, it shows that they're taken for granted that this was going to happen. And so even now to try and peel that back, if somehow we do send a strong enough message to stop government from doing it, they're going to have this big white elephant sitting there with hundreds of millions of dollars into a regulator that all they need to do is come back to us and tell us what our standards should be and how we apply them.
Thanks, Councillor Burt. Councillor Booth.
And I guess the other concern is probably about the new water entity. They've only consulted with iwi Manawhara. Actually, that's only 15% representation of the country. I mean, that's just unbelievable. So they're getting all their direction from that area. I just don't understand that.
No, good point. Okay, we'll ask for someone. Do we have a mover for 1, 2, 3, A, B, and C, and then we'll deal with 4. We'll just have a little conversation around the regulation. Councillor Burt, Councillor Parker. Just a couple of comments from me before we move. I mean, my concerns are, around ownership. I think they're rewriting the definition of ownership. Ownership in name only, but you don't get any of the benefits that those of us would normally get from traditional ownership. So that'll be interesting. See how the Oxford Dictionary, what they do, put in the definition of ownership. It'll be interesting, Matthew. Follow up on that one for me. I think you come to an interesting point, Councillor Booth. The governance structure is interesting and potentially a really slippery slope for our democracy. The safeguards against privatisation simply aren't there. We all know that by an act of parliament, 50% plus one, this can be changed. And I think it's a blatant lie to say that, there's protections to 75% in regard to a referendum. That's just ridiculous. I think locally, and the reason I got into local government, and I'm sure a lot of you around the table are in a similar position, but we're wanting to do more at a local level. It's around bespoke solutions for the Timaru district. It's about bottom up, and some may be frustrated at times that they think council aren't listening, but I think that's wrong. And the fact that a lot of these people in the room today have emailed or spoken to me on the phone about these particular issues, and you would have got a reply as well, speaks to the fact that, hey, you do, and, you know, have direct contact with the people that you've elected. So, you know, bottom up democracy really does well for our community, and the pathway that's currently in politics around centralisation is of real concern, and I think it's a bigger discussion that the country needs to have. And, you know, if you look at whether it's right or wrong, but if you look at democracy that's been taken out of health, if you look at the democracy that's been taken out of, or trying to be taken out of water at the moment, before we even have the conversation around the future of local government and RMA, you know, in 10 years' time, council, and I know I joke about it, but council, local government for New Zealand could simply be deciding on where the next art gallery is, where you know, where the swimming pool is, you know, should we have a blue slide or a brown slide in the park out at Temuka. We're likely to go probably Pleasant Point maroon. But those are the sort of conversations, and, you know, without having our conversation and consultation with the community, how can any government change democracy to the extent that they're doing at the moment? But it's happening. And so the problem that I see is, yes, we'll recommend these recommendations and they'll likely pass, and we'll send a strong message to government. But the minister yesterday said to me that some councils have entrenched views, and I challenged her back and said, well, I think you've got entrenched views around this existing pathway as well. And, you know, I have real concerns that no matter what messages we send, unless it affects Auckland, where the majority of the seats are, government won't be listening. So I think the opportunity now to send a message to government is through our people. We need to, you know, be active through, you know, the channels that we have through local democracy. But we need to bring the Prime Minister into this conversation, because at the moment she's standing quite safely off to the side, and she needs to front this reform. The Minister said to me that it is now a decision for Cabinet. Well, who chairs Cabinet? Prime Minister does. So the Prime Minister needs to stand up and tell the country that she's comfortable taking your assets away from you and changing local democracy by stealth. That was Nigel Bowen quote, not John Key. Thank you, Matthew. So I have some real concerns, obviously. Just want to speak to the road ahead, because I think we've got to be conscious that there is some challenges. We don't know what the regulation is going to bring. I think it's been pointed out significantly by both Mr. Harper and Grant as well, that, hey, there's some challenges coming, and no matter what council you're in, there's going to be some increased costs. But without the regulation and without understanding what the options around funding and financing are into the future, how can we make those decisions? So we're making decisions based on a moment in time, and the moment in time at the moment, we simply don't have enough information to say, hey, this is going to be a good thing for us. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Any further discussion? So that's 1, 2, 3, A, B, and C, I think. Put the motion to the floor. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So unanimous. Well done, team. So go now to item 4. Sort of talked a little bit about it just then. And that really speaks to us acknowledging the challenges that we have in front of us, and understanding that we both welcome the challenges and we're not going in blind to those, and that we welcome the reform in regard to both the Te Mara ROI and also the economic regulator, and that these will help bring better standards to the country. So is there any conversations around those? No, I'm happy to move that then. So that's number 4, and throw 5 in there as well, which just delegates authority to the Mayor and CE to amend and approve the submission back to government. Thanks, Councillor Wills. Any further discussion? Put the motion to the floor. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Cool. So we've picked up a little bit of probably feedback for the team. If there's anything specifically that you want to add We've got just a couple of days to round that up, so make sure we get that through pretty quickly. And we can go direct through Mr. Harper. Thank you, Mr. Harper. Appreciate that. No problem. So we'll go now to TDHL, and we gave some context around that. Councillor Piddington, do you want to speak briefly again?
No, just that it gives us some clarity around the decisions we need to make going forward. That it actually sits with the elected members as shareholders rather than the TDHL board.
Yep, and I think the request through the CE was that we bring a paper to the next council meeting in and around that point. Yeah, cool. Thank you. So move now to LGNZ membership, and I know we've had some discussions around this before. The heads of agreement, and for those that were at conference, we were really concerned that a small amount of people within local government New Zealand went ahead and signed that heads of agreement. Have real concerns that they haven't been balanced in representing all councils across the country. So very much it feels that they have steered the path which is in bed with central government, and really conscious and think we need to have a good discussion around, are they performing the best duty for us? Do we still value that membership, and or should we be sending a clear message back to local government NZ, what our thoughts are? And an option would also be, just having a brief conversation before, would be delegating authority to myself, if need be, to remove ourselves from that membership. And there is some conversations around the country. I see a couple of councillors in Christchurch are bringing a paper in October, maybe mid-October, around Christchurch City Council's membership, and I know there's murmurings amongst the mayors that we're not being represented well, and it's interesting to hear. And as a relatively new mayor compared to some, when I'm at rural and provincial, they all talk about how great our partnership is with central government, and it's great to be in the room with them. And look, if this is what partnership looks like, I worried about what it looked like before. Go now to Councillor Lyon.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Look, I think, I agree with what you said, totally. And I was at Local Government New Zealand conference and felt the same vibes that you felt. And quite simply, I think that, the grouping that's Local Government New Zealand, which represents the 67 councils of New Zealand, haven't represented the 67 councils of New Zealand. And I think that we should feel a little aggrieved about that. And I think that the directions were charted long before they consulted, Local Government New Zealand consulted with the individual councils and or got an understanding of even the positions of all the councils. And I think it was pretty cavalier, the way that local government assumed they had the mandate on behalf of the councils to push on forward, and I guess almost tried to bulldoze the issue through to us councils. And I think the reward for that arrogance should be that we pull away from Local Government New Zealand. And I would support a move for that, because I don't believe that that will leave us stranded in any way. We are an entity on our own. We will be consulted when we need to be consulted by the entities that need to consult with us, and we will not be shut out. But we will have a clear message sent to Local Government New Zealand that we thought they were cavalier, and it's not the way we would expect our purported reps on our behalf to behave. So if there's any motion to go that way, I'm happy to support it, second it, whatever, but I would certainly opt out of the Local Government New Zealand.
Thanks, Councillor Lyon. Councillor Burt.
Right.
Sorry. No, you're right. Councillor Scott, and then go to Councillor
So
Burt.
right from the beginning, we were sold by central government that DIA were going to be the conduit between central government and us in terms of landing this and giving us the appropriate information and bringing us through to the pathways to where we had the appropriate information. And very quickly it became evident that DIA and LGNZ were indistinguishable in terms of what their I suppose, their ideas were and what the messages they were giving us. So they weren't in any way, especially in terms of DIA, they were basically a mouthpiece for central government. And very quickly, LGNZ seemed to get into bed with them. And the messages we got at that conference were that they were manipulating us in terms of some of the messaging, the people that they were putting in front of us, and certainly the enablement of DIA, which is essentially the mouthpiece of local government. So as Councillor Lyons points out, in terms of sending the message and cancelling our membership, it sends a very, very good message. I hope it'll start a landslide among the other TAs, but it also doesn't leave us in any position where we're wanting or we're going to be fishing around for information or anything, because at the moment we know exactly where they've landed with us, and I don't think it'll leave us in a weak position. So I think we should definitely consciously make a decision here today to withdraw membership from LGNZ.
Councillor Booth.
Yeah, I'd just probably like to add that, you know, that the LGNZ had the benefit of Castalia's report back in June 2000. They also had the benefit of Becca and PwC, I think. Well, yeah, so, and because the Castalia report was basically damning, LGNZ members were not told of its presence. Instead, the governance and the team that were supposed to be representing all the district councils on LGNZ simply fed out what they felt they should do, and that was obviously driven by DIA. So I'm quite that was, and the other thing, we're at a conference and they're telling us what you can ask the minister. You know, that's just rubbish. So, you know, they're just well and true. I'm not sure what they've been promised or what happened, but they are definitely, in my opinion, have not been representing their members, and the whole lot of them, all the governance team should resign. So,
Thanks, Councillor Booth. Sorry, Councillor Gilchrist.
Sorry, it's easy to forget about the people on the Zoom, isn't it? Thank you, Your Worship. Look, like you and Councillor Lyon, I was at the conference and was completely appalled by LGNZ's signing of that heads of agreement without any consultation or anything. And in my professional or personal life, I would never pay membership fees to an organisation that represents a view that contradicts mine, and that's the case with this. So I fully support our leaving the membership of LGNZ as they're not representing our views at all, and I don't know that we can trust them to do that. And I think that that's the only way we can. That's the strongest message that we can send them, is to remove ourselves from their membership list. So if there's a motion to do that, I fully support it.
Thanks, Councillor Gilchrist. Councillor Parker.
Thank you. I wasn't at conference, so I did not hear what local government New Zealand said, but on their website they say that they support the national interests of council, and it appears on this time that they have lacked to do that. So they've failed local government on what they are about. Like Councillor Gilchrist, any membership that I would belong to, I would expect a service, and they've just dropped the ball. They haven't supported local government at all during this process, from my understanding, and so I would also support a motion to opt out of their membership. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. I might just get Chief Executive just to speak briefly to what our membership fees are and just options around this, because we would because we have paid our membership fees and we'd have to negotiate any yeah, you're right. Thanks.
Yeah, so through you, Your Worship. So the membership is paid on an annual cycle from April to March. LGNZ balance date is March. So we had paid $53,000. That's the resolution is for us to withdraw. Then we would write and ask for a prorated refund, which would be approximate to 6 months, half of that 53,000. So sort of $26,000, a bit more, a bit less, depending on when they took it. So that would, whether they'd do that or not, I don't know, but we would certainly be comfortable writing and expressing that beyond you.
And just conscious of any missed opportunity ramifications that you could think of. Pete?
Through you, I mean, you sort of want to map those through. They may, I imagine the first thing would be that they would probably enter into dialogue, or you'd hope they would. But we do attend on a regular basis conferences like rural and provincial. We have access to a library. We attend the by Zoom, the sort of Three Waters updates that they provide and so on. So there is a measure of collateral. With, you know, they may say that's members only. So we would potentially have a risk not having any of that if we weren't members.
And surely there would be an obligation for DIA and government to deal with us direct if they couldn't deal with us through a membership body, surely.
Yeah, so
you think.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, if they deal with LGNZ on the auspices that dealing with LGNZ is dealing with the sector, and then we're no longer part of that, then there is a case for us to say you need to deal with us individually. Where they say, well, we deal with them on an advocacy or policy perspective, they may say that it's not necessary. We'd have to explore those sorts of issues, Your Worship.
Yeah.
But I'd probably want to think, I mean, through whether there are any, but it would be around access to collateral and attendance at conferences and so on. But the risk at this stage would be greater.
Yeah.
But we'd go away and reflect on that.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed you, Councillor Binnington. We'll go to you in a moment. Councillor Booth and then Councillor Binnington.
Yeah, look, just I guess in my mind, the most valuable part about the relationship is that when you do go to the those events, that you get the opportunity to network with other councillors and councils. So that's always probably the best part from my perspective. You're probably going to save a bit more money than 55 because there's probably a bit of expense flying up there and you're staying in hotels and etc. So yeah, that was my main point. That would be the only loss that I could see. Yeah.
Thanks. Councillor Binnington.
I guess I'm a bit cautious and would probably like a paper presented, but in the meantime, write to them in its strongest terms, saying our disappointment of them rather than kind of make an off the cuff decision, because that collateral damage is important, as pointed out by the chief executive. They've certainly got the advocacy all wrong in this instance, but surely if 60 or 67 councils are opposed or opting out, you know, is it the leadership rather than the organisation we have a problem with? Because I don't want to, they must do some good things. And in this case, they've certainly dropped the ball. So I'm cautious without stepping down that next level just to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Thanks, Councillor Binnington. Councillor Lyon.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, in these enlightened times, there's many groupings and organisations that and industry and business and union sites that are not unilaterally represented by one grouping. You know, that's not unusual. It's about everywhere you look. Not everybody's a member of that grouping. So this is not unusual that as part of the grouping that we are now, we step back from that. Others may or may not, but it's not unusual if we did that because it happens in all sectors of our community everywhere we look. So I'm not nervous about that at all. You know, in regards to the way forward, I mean, with this discussion is really, really useful. And would it be helpful to you, Your Worship, if we indicated our preference and let you further consider and deal with the issue in the way that you would, and then come back to us with the potential way forward? And that way getting Councillor Piddington's view that, you know, a little bit of airing on the way through, potentially.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Lyon. Councillor Wills.
Well, thank you, Worship. I had some recommendations here, and pretty much on lines that's already been spoken to as well, is that if we raise the letter of concerns from Timaru District Council back to LG and voicing within some of the concerns that have been raised here today, and ask and wait for a written response, and then we can make a more informed decision, which I then will think will hopefully give them a very clear signal about where we're sitting, and maybe just that we'll get a better and more open, transparent discussion, conversations moving forward into the future around other subjects that may have a major impact on local democracy. So I'm quite happy to move that recommendation for a letter to go forward to LG. Asking for some clarity. Thank you.
Yep, no worries. We'll take that as a motion. Thanks, Councillor Wills. Councillor Burt.
I think we're past that point. They're not going to resile from the advice they've given us. They're not going to resile from the fact that they have, for all intents and purposes, implicitly got a group of people together that weren't a true representation to the TAs, there, the 67 of us, and suddenly change their views. I think that if we say that we're going to withdraw, we're withdrawing for a very, very specific reason. And so we couch it from a point of view that we are so concerned, apart from all the collateral and everything they do and the good stuff they do, and we can't really separate the leadership from the organisation. Hopefully this pressure will deal with the leadership and the organisation will deal with that. But I think at this stage, if we couch it that we're doing it for this very specific reason, knowing that there is no caveat anywhere that stops us from rejoining again once this situation has been resolved, I think you know, getting a letter to them saying, hey, we might just do this, and we need some clarification for you, is stealing a march on the fact that we want to send a very clear message. And again, for the short time that potentially that this is going to happen before government makes a decision, hopefully it does start a landslide. And I think that we need to actually, you know, jump on this now while we've got the chance. It's part of a leverage to say we're opting out, and we agree with everything we've done around our assessment of why we're opting out, and we're very disappointed in LGNZ in terms of their representation on our behalf.
Thanks, Councillor Burt. A bit more punch, less wet bus ticket.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Booth.
Would it be possible to have included in that motion that would we support a motion of no confidence in the chairman and the board, as in we would ask them to resign?
Yeah, my only comment would be to that, just in, I'd be more comfortable if I'd had that conversation with them first to say that we're not comfortable, rather than, yeah. But yeah, you could certainly have perhaps your vote of no confidence in the LGNZ committee, direction of committee, or yeah, the president you're talking about. Yeah, I just, from a personal point of view, I'd just like to have that a one-on-one conversation with someone before I put them under the bus. Sorry, Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, look, I think we definitely have the right to feel duly let down by LGNZ at this time. I agree with Councillor Piddington in a way that we would give us a bit of a breathing space to see how other councils are reacting to this. But if it comes to making a decision today to opt out on for that as well, yeah, I just think that it feels like a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but in saying that, it would be good to set a precedence from this council to show them directly how we feel about how we were let down. So
Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Councillor O'Reilly.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. It's most of my thoughts have been sort of said, but it's like the old story. If you've got someone representing you, and you don't like them, usually sort of tell them you don't want to be there anymore. So that's really what we're thinking. We don't like our representation, so we pull out. But I think we're going to pull out with a wee bit of caution and making sure that we don't burn all our bridges too. So, but yeah, I'm happy to go either way. Happy to move out.
Thanks, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Worship. Considering the motion hasn't been seconded, it's on the table.
Yeah.
I'll give notice of a further motion if that motion is either seconded or withdrawn. Do you want me to speak to that now or not?
Yeah.
I mean, the motion that I would put to my colleagues would be that we agree to withdraw our membership from Local Government New Zealand, and we can do that unilaterally now, and leave the details to His Worship to finalise. And I think we could give His Worship tremendous strength by doing that, and we can make it clear our views and our thoughts, and His Worship gets strength in that when he's dealing with his colleagues up the line. And so that the motion would be that we do withdraw, and we leave the details of that withdrawal for His Worship to negotiate. So I will move in that direction if it's any use at all. No, you haven't withdrawn. I can't. Sorry, I can't move it yet. I can't move it yet.
So alternate motion. You're happy to, yeah, and you okay. So we've now got a motion. Sorry, could you just repeat that? And thanks, Councillor.
We agree to withdraw our membership from Local Government New Zealand, and the details we leave to you, Your Worship, to finalise, to work the details through, because like anything as big as this, there'll be some details being sorted. And I'm very happy to leave that to you with the mandate from Council Laws that you're going from the position of strength.
Thank you. And you're comfortable seconding that. Councillor Burt, did you?
Yeah, I was actually.
Oh, okay. So the motion is to withdraw, and that is then delegate. Yes, she did. She did speak. Yes, and then delegate responsibility to the mayor to go through any, conscious that we may not get refund, and then I guess we've got benefit to come. So it is a bit of a negotiation if that's the case. Yep. So comfortable with that. So that's the motion seconded. Any further discussion, either for or against? So we'll put the motion to the floor. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. So that deals with that, and that brings the meeting to a close. Thank you for all those in attendance, and thanks members for good discussion.